Welcome to Cause Before Symptom with your host, James Carner.
Are we living in Satan's short season? Well, we're going to talk about that tonight. Stick around. Welcome to Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Carner. Tonight is September 15th, 2024. We are live on Rumble, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And here we are. Now, I have to apologize, guys. Last night, I had an impromptu, it was out of the blue, chance to go test a mine site. I'm basically buying a claim, a gold claim, in Oregon. It's my first that I'm going to own. Usually I get permission from the claim owner to mine, but this time I'm going all in. I'm buying my own claim, and I am absolutely shaken to the core because I'm taking it to the next level, and I am going to bring you guys in with this journey as I try that I may find gold. Gold is bizarre. Gold is beautiful. Gold doesn't belong on this earth. It is an element that doesn't belong here. In fact, scientists say it comes from a supernova, not even Earth. And they say that while Earth was forming, gold formed in with it from the supernova. I don't believe all that malarkey. I think it comes from ancient trees. It's the sap of those ancient trees that, well, the angels cut down, apparently. Now, that's myth, it's a religion, who gives a shit? I don't care. All I know is I love gold. And so that's what I'm doing. Tomorrow I seal the deal. It's a verbal agreement right now. I'm going to go tomorrow and seal that deal. And while I was racking my brain trying to figure out what is the topics? What are people talking about? And as I was going through TikTok, I found a video, and the video was of this guy talking about the Byzantine Empire, which lasted 1,000 years. He said the Byzantine Empire lasted 1,000 years, and they actually had Jesus on the coins. And I went, 1,000 years? Wait a minute. Could these Tartaria people be right? Was there 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth? And even Byzantine, the leftover of the Roman Empire, which lasted 1,000 years. Is there a connection here? Because I thought that was bizarre because, who prints Jesus on their coins? I had no idea. That was like the first time I've ever even heard of Jesus's face being on a coin. So I started diving. And you know me, came across some interesting stuff. Is it true? Well, let's find out. All right, so are we living in Satan's short season? I never made this connection until I saw a video on TikTok showing Jesus's image on a Byzantine coin. Are we living in Satan's short systems, period, or whatever? Well, the Byzantine Empire, it really lasted for a little over 1,000 years. Some say 1,100 years. It's up for debate. Who cares? 1,000 years. If you put a rough guess to it or round it up or round it down. It was founded 330 AD, after Christ died. 330 AD, and fell to the Ottoman Empire, which is Muslim, in 1453. Interesting. The Tartaria theory may be involved as well, and that's something I'm going to have to dig in a little bit deeper again because I pretty much thought I debunked that, but this has me curious. So many have been saying we live in the time after Satan was released after 1,000 years of Jesus' reign on earth. And how fast time is moving right now with technology and stuff, man, it sure seems like they are pushing for something coming. Something that feels it's rushed, but it's happening and it's going there. Do you feel it? I feel it. Now, did Jesus die and then come back and reign for 1,000 years on the year 330? 330 years after they hung him on the cross? The portrayal of Jesus on coins was a reflection of the Byzantine Empire's strong Christian identity and its desire to promote religious devotion. But I'm curious, why did they put Jesus? A practice that began in the 10th century and was a significant departure from the traditional Roman practice of depicting emperors and mythological figures on coins. But the Byzantine Empire, you see, when we study history, we hear the Byzantine Empire was just as evil as Rome. In fact, Rome fell, Byzantine picked up the pieces, same leaders, different looking ism. But this doesn't mean Jesus was here for 1,000 years, right? The Bible, specifically the book of Revelation, provides a pretty good description of the New Jerusalem, but it doesn't give explicit measurements or calculations of its size. You see, I have read many times that scholars have pointed at how big the city of Jerusalem is going to be. It's going to be called the New Jerusalem when Jesus is here, during that 1,000-year time period when Satan gets put into the pit for 1,000 years. That's what it means by Satan's short season, because right after 1,000 years, Jesus decides, I'm going to let you go for a bit. Okay. But I want to find out, is there any proof that there was a New Jerusalem, which scholars have said it was, or it's going to be, approximately 1,400 miles long and wide? No joke. Now, academia says instead the text uses symbolic language and imagery to convey its vastness and grandeur. It describes the city, not a country, as a cube, with its length, width, and height all being equal. Meaning 1,400 miles wide, 1,400 miles long, 1,400 miles high. Yeah, that's crazy, I know. But that's what it says in each dimension. So 1,400 mile cube, or 2,250 kilometers, that's huge. Is it true? Well, while this might seem like a literal measurement, it's important to remember that the New Jerusalem is a heavenly city. Heavenly. Not a physical one, according to many scholars. The symbolic nature of its description suggests that its size may represent something more than just a physical dimension. It could symbolize the vastness of God's kingdom, or the abundance of blessings, or the infinite nature of eternal life. Maybe. Most likely, judging by research and what I've seen through my past life of 50 years, I don't think that it's going to be physical in nature, that when Jesus returns, it's going to be a spiritual battle, and we're not going to see it like we think we're going to see it. So that could mean that spiritually, Jesus came down at the year 330 AD and set up camp. And this, ironically, is right around the period that the Dark Ages started. Isn't that weird? And we know during the Dark Ages, progression of things as it is now wasn't like that back then. But during the Dark Ages, or the beginning of, and Jesus' return, did Jesus come back and build Tartaria? A worldwide event of free electricity, beautiful buildings, which mostly look like castles, and beautiful types of churchy architecture, old-time churchy architecture. And then, right after Satan's release, they crashed it all down, buried it, called it the mud flood, and moved on. But what about Jerusalem, New Jerusalem? How big was it? If there's anything in recorded history to find, we would have to go right there to Israel and just look and see if there has been an imprint or maybe walls that stretch 1,400 miles wide and long. I didn't see any. I'll have to look again. But ultimately, the exact size of the New Jerusalem is a matter of interpretation of faith and faith. Well, I'll be. John Balls has joined the show. John Balls is here right now on Rumble Live, where I have picked up my show a while ago and moved it off of TikTok, because every time I post something, they put a community violation, and they also took down my last James Carner account and said, you're suspended for eternity. They said, we're going to lock you up, kid. Your stuff is just, well, too much. So, John Balls, welcome. It's a very small gathering here, but everyone is enjoying themselves, all 32 of us, which just so happens to be a Masonic number. God help me. The Bible's description is meant to inspire awe and wonder rather than to provide precise measurements. That's according to AI. Well, screw that. I want to know. Yeah, eternity is a long time, John. It's over. It's gone. Goodbye to @Carner James. It will never return. In fact, they even banned my phone number and my IP address. If I try to create an account, it says, warning, 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 terror alert, terror alert. Serious. It's just bullshit. So I have read that some scholars say the kingdom is a square or box 1,400 miles high, too. I've read this. If Jesus did return and the New Jerusalem was 1,400 miles wide and long, plus high, there would have to be physical evidence. But I didn't find any. But if it was spiritual, then perhaps no evidence would be left. And I'm okay with that. I've had too many spiritual phenomenon and supernatural events that have happened in my life that you just can't wake me up from Christianity, even though I have, and Rockin' Raccoon has joined the fun. Holy crap. John Balls today, haven't seen him in months, shows up, says, where am I? And then Rockin' Raccoon shows up and says, hi. Wow. Wow. The boys are back in town with the exception of one chick. Ooh. Yeah. What's up, Edged? Love you guys. What's the censorship like here? There's zero zilch. I can say Nazi. I can say pussy. I can do whatever I want. Yeah. I did not see that coming. And I have I used to have two pussies. They both died. Now we just have a dog. I have read that some scholars say the kingdom is like a square or a box. So, if it is spiritual, then perhaps no evidence will be left. I'm okay with that. Now, where was the Byzantine Empire that put Jesus' face on coins? Well, at its greatest extent, the Byzantine Empire covered much of the land surrounding the Mediterranean Sea, including what is now Italy, Greece, and Turkey, along with portions of North Africa and the Middle East. And it really doesn't seem like it covers any of Israel. And during the Byzantine Empire, there were many famous emperors that ruled. You might know a few of them, including Constantine I, who ruled from 306 to 337. He moved the capital to Constantinople, and made Christianity the state religion. Justinian followed Constantine I. He ruled from 527 to 565. He led the empire to its greatest territorial extent since the fall of Western Roman Empire. There was Heraclius, who ruled from 610 to 641. Then Leo III ruled from 717 to 741. And then Basil II ruled from 976 to 1025. Then Alexios I ruled from 1081 to 1118. Then Manuel. We got a Spanish guy in there. Hola, ¿cómo está? Manuel I, ruling the Byzantine Empire from 1143 or 1143 to 1180. Then Michael VIII ruled from 1261 to 1282, and then Constantine the 11th. Where did all the other Constantines go? Ruled from 1449 to 1453. And that's when the shit hit the fan, okay? The 1500s, right around the 1500s, is when the Orsinis took power from the Breakspear family. Now, Constantine, Michael, Manuel, Alexios, Basil, Leo, Heraclius, Justinian, Constantine, none of them were really the rulers. They were just the facemen, just like Trump, just like Kamala. Anybody that's on TV right now that is speaking is just an actor playing their role in this circus of ours. Now, the Byzantine Empire was an autocratic state that lasted from around 330 to 1453. I know for a fact that the year 1000 to 1500, the Breakspear family ruled the Catholic Church. The emperor, or Basileus, was the head of the government and church, commander-in-chief of the army, and controlled the state finances. That is, right before they fell. This would mean the Breakspear family would have been ruling the world during Jesus' reign if we are to think that we're living in the second season or the short season of Satan. So that would mean if Jesus was alive on earth ruling it, then man was trying to rule against him. And maybe that's what sparked the Dark Ages. Maybe. But is there more evidence to back this up? You see, I know that when Jesus put Satan and his buds in the pit for 1,000 years, I believe there's a reason for it, and the reason is, this is just a guess, is that to prove to man that even with Satan gone, we still are rotten to the core. And we will try to take over the world just like Satan did. That's what I believe. So, well, yeah, and by the way, John Balls, they did change our alphabet and everything. The year 666 is when they invented English, which is a spell language of casting spells using verbal language of English. My studies have shown the Breaksteer family did control Europe and the Middle East from around the years 1000 to 1500. Deborah's like, no more rabbit holes. I can't. Well, that's just what I do. They did. And this is when the Orsini clan took over, which is around the year 1500. Now, during the Dark Ages, not a lot of advancement actually happened, okay? We know the biggest thing that they invented during the Dark Ages was the plow. Hey, man, let's put some metal on the ground and tear some shit up. Okay. And then, wow, the most greatest invention for the past 3,000 to 4,000 years, the plow. During the Dark Ages. The term Dark Ages is a historical periodization that refers to the period in Europe between the fall of the Western Roman Empire and the Renaissance. Now, when the Renaissance was around, I remember, I hear them playing that little harp piano, ding, 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 and people dressed up like with wigs and collars and you can't tell between men and women during the Renaissance period. It was a free-for-all orgy. And maybe that was like right, they were just going nuts, having sex with whatever they want. Donkeys, yep. Bestiality, Renaissance. They're like, we're living it up. Then Jesus comes, throws Satan in the pit, screws that over, and then starts to reign. Maybe. But a lot of things did happen during the Dark Ages, which gives us clues. And the Dark Ages and the Roman Empire, with the Renaissance, it went away right around the year of 330 AD. Apparently. Then the Dark Ages, which is kings and queens and peasants, nothing else. No middle class. Now, the Dark Ages is often associated with a decline in classical learning and culture. So, it's like all schooling and everything just went away. And here's why it's called the Dark Ages. There was lack of written records. They just seemed to disappear. It was almost like the burning of Alexandria's library, where all this historical document just went up in smoke, gone. Compared to the classical period, there's a significant decrease in the high number of written records that have survived from the Dark Age time. This made it extremely difficult for later historians to study and understand this period. Well, we know Satan deletes stuff all the time. Could he have taken the 1,000 years and then hid all of that information and replaced it with something else, giving us the impression that that Jesus hasn't come yet? Back in the Dark Ages, there was a shift in cultural focus. Why? The focus of society shifted away from classical ideals of Rome and Greece, which was free-for-all, circle jerk orgy time, leading to a perceived decline in intellectual and artistic pursuits. Did Jesus come and stop it? And then the religious influence, the rise of Christianity and its influence on European culture and society was seen as a departure from the classical traditions. It's like Christianity just swarmed in. Could it be maybe that spiritually Jesus did come? And man found it even harder to cast spells and do magic and control the people because Satan was locked up? Is that because why there wasn't advancement in technology back then? Because Satan wasn't around to give us hints as to how to split the atom? Now, the term Dark Ages is a somewhat controversial one. The term Dark Ages. Many historians argue that it's an oversimplification of a complex period. It wasn't really that complex. They didn't do shit. And that there was significant cultural and intellectual activity happening during this time. So some scholars say, hey, lots of great things happen. It wasn't just a, non-progressive time. But the kinds of things that they were progressing in over 1,000 years wasn't much. Not like right until the year 1500. Everything exploded. I mean, exploded. And I'll give you examples of how, because it's absolutely insane. And the odds and calculations of a society going that far advanced that quick, it's improbable. In recent years, there has been a growing movement to reevaluate the Middle Ages, or the Dark Ages, and recognize the importance of the contributions that were made during this area. Maybe they want to go back and put some things in there to say, yeah, we were progressive, so it stops people from trying to find the truth. Now, did Jesus return? I just don't know. But I'm going to give you enough evidence for you to make a good conclusion based on that. Leave it up to you. It's your opinion. Christian scriptures do describe a period of peace followed by a resurgence of evil when it talks about the 1,000-year lockup of Satan in the pit. But the details and interpretations vary among denominations and theologians. Here's some interpretations of that relevant to today. Revelations 20:1 through 3, Satan is bound for 1,000 years, but then released for a short time. That's what we call Satan's short period, or short time, or short season. Satan's short season. This suggests a period of peace followed by his return. No, that's not right. This suggests peace for 1,000 years, or unless they're saying peace followed by Jesus' return. Yeah, that would make sense. Okay, that makes sense. Then Revelation 27 through 10 talks about after Satan's release, there's a final battle, Gog and Magog, where Satan is ultimately defeated and thrown into the lake of fire. This implies a final confrontation with evil after a period of his influence. The interpretations of these passages differ through scholars, obviously, because no one can sit down and just agree for once. The literal interpretation of it, some believe that the 1,000 years that Satan's in the pit will be a literal period of peace on earth before Satan's return and the final battle. Well, the Breakspires were in control. Was there peace during the year 330 to the year 1500? It doesn't really seem like it. It seems like there were kings and queens and peasants, nothing else. No progression. It didn't seem like it, but Satan could have, with the help of man, over the past 200 years, before, we started snapping pictures and finding other books, maybe they hid it. There's also symbolic interpretation. Others view the 1,000 years as a symbolic representation of a long period of relative peace, possibly interspersed with smaller scale conflicts. Maybe. I just don't know. The entire world right now is surrounding Israel. Gog which is Russia, Magog, which is China, are surrounding Israel. They hate Israel. I do too, actually. Yes, me being a pastor, I have a hatred for what they're doing. Not the people. I don't hate people. I just hate the evil that Israel, the country, is doing upon the Gazans or the Palestinians as they are practicing a huge satanic ritual of genocide. And that's what I believe at this time. I believe they are killing people to satisfy their god, Baal and Moloch. Some say this is when Gog and Magog from the east will try and destroy Israel, which it literally looks like they could try real soon. Did you know that Israel and America are the ones that are stopping BRICS from coming into fruition? From another central bank competing against the main one? It even says Israel will be a thorn in the side of the entire world, which is right now. The International Court has put out an arrest warrant for Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister of Satan, Israel. I mean, it sure does look biblical to me. Or is it all just made up to keep us going or focused in on our Bibles and focusing on theology and eschatology and try and develop ideas through history to find out what time we're in while they continue to steal and rob, kill, and destroy everything that we have so that we can't retire and give anything over to our children, which is why the Social Security was created in the first place. That just took retirement, shoved it up your butt. The entire world surrounding Israel. Israel is a thorn in the side of the entire world right now. Now, there are arguments for this time period and that we are living in Satan's little season. There's a prophetic timeline. The book of Revelations describes a period of peace, often interpreted as 1,000-year reign of Christ, followed by Satan's release for a short time. This could suggest that we are currently in this short season of Satan's renewed influence. There's an increase in global challenges. Many argue that the world is experiencing a rise in moral decay, societal unrest, and natural disasters. These challenges could be seen as evidence of Satan's increased activity, as described in biblical prophecies. And the technological advancements and moral dilemmas. The rapid pace of technological advancement has led to new ethical dilemmas and societal changes, such as putting robots in your home or building robots to have sex with them. Sounds tempting. Won't talk back. Won't argue. I'm just saying. Some argue that these developments are being used by Satan to sow division and confusion. I would say that's happening right now, regardless. Because it wasn't 20 years ago that I was settled, science was settled, that there was a male and a female. 2 genders. And now there's up to 62. And people want to be identified now as things that are absolutely bizarre and strange to me. Not that I think it's a bad thing. If you want to be something, you be it. Be all that you can be. I don't care. If you want to dress up in a furry outfit and go out to eat, that's great. Yeah, I'll check you out every few times, just to see what you're doing. Check out your costume. But if you jump off the table while we're all eating and then you start rubbing against my leg, Then I'm going to sit you down and say, I don't appreciate being a part of your rude behavior. I'm not going to say something like, I'm not going to participate in your dreams or fantasies, because that's coming across as a bigot. I'm not going to be a bigot. I'm going to say, set the record for just society alone. You crossed a barrier. I don't get up and I rub against you while you're eating dinner. Don't. Okay? Because we have to love our neighbor, and our neighbors now are going in a direction of things that we haven't grown up to see and understand. And we need to address the issue without immediately jumping into psychological problems. And we should immediately not judge based on appearances. We don't know why they're doing it. And really, it's none of our business. And so don't get caught up in the propaganda to divide and conquer us, to get us angry, to say that they have psychological issues and they don't belong in public. Well, that's right. Amanda, a lot will want to say, I don't want to participate in your mental illness. That's just absolutely saying something without you having any proof of. You don't even know if that person was just on a game show and you're being filmed for some joke. Or you don't know if that person has been through a traumatic experience of satanic ritual abuse, and the only comfortable way that they feel is being inside a costume that nobody can see them at all. And yes, the litter boxes in school, we have to approach that with wisdom. We can't approach it with bigotry. We can't approach it with, we're right, you're wrong. Because there is no right and wrong in this scenario. If an alien nation came to view Earth and studied our habits and sociology, and judge it based on their way of living and lifestyle, they're not going to understand what we do. And if they see that one person's dressed as a furry and the rest of the people in the restaurant aren't, they're not going to say, oh, there's the mental illness one. We've got to be nicer and love our neighbor. Loving our neighbor means stop being a bigot, stop judging, stop assuming. And if they intrude on your space, then you can say something. But you can't say you're mental. We need to grow up. I hope you understand. I'm trying to get you guys to love people, not fall in the divide and conquer strategy of judging them and assuming that them, in whatever character they want to be in, is ruining society. Because that is not your responsibility. Even though you know the government is setting it all up for division, your argument at that time in that restaurant with the furry is not going to ripple the waters and make a change forever. Wisdom says, if you want that to go away, then you need to study and understand it first before you can just assume it should go away. And then see if you can build an organization that can help people, if it is a mental illness, with that problem. But approaching them and saying, I'm not going to participate in your mental illness, sorry guys, it's not a healthy way to go. Yeah, I don't, Amanda says, I really don't care if people want to wear costumes and stuff like that, but I absolutely don't want kids squatting and shitting or peeing in a box in front of my kids in the bathroom at school. Right, so we need to approach that with wisdom and say, okay, we've got kids who are being raised by us now, the teachers, right? Because obviously the parents aren't raising the kids, okay? If they're going to go to school, participate in what the school does. I don't think it was the school's idea for people to dress up as furries and play kitty. I don't think that was the school's idea. So the teachers are just going off of what the powers that be in their information they hand down to them. We just have to use it with discretion, love, and understanding. Yeah, I know it's not with the kids. Kids are not going to grow up until they reach the age of 30. Let's just say that. So, but the age of consent, I think that's where it would make the most sense and say, look, everyone needs to participate without doing things that's out of the ordinary. So if you're not participating in school, you shouldn't go to school. That's all. Pull the kid out. But this is such a long debate. We're getting off topic. Getting back to, are we living in Satan's last season? Are we? Well, I never thought I would see furries walking around my neighborhood. I see them in a small town of Bend, Oregon, where I live. I see them. They're everywhere. How fast did that happen? It happened so fast that 20 years ago, none of us would have even dreamed of that. We heard about people doing that at parties, but we didn't think it was, an actual identity crisis. Which this, to me, is something happened and it started. What's the cause? Well, there's a growing sense of spiritual apathy. Many people feel disconnected from spiritual matters or are uncertain about the existence of God. This could be interpreted as a sign of Satan's success in blinding people to spiritual truths. You see, when Christianity was out 100 years ago, people were afraid to sin. Lexi goes, pussies. It's okay to joke, okay, but it's not okay to hate. But yeah, that's funny. Satan just wants to steal, kill, and destroy. And he's just going to make up stuff and get people involved in things to create chaos so that we just don't focus on what he's doing, and that's stealing, killing, destroying our futures. And our future could be really short if we are in Satan's short time. To me, it would make sense. That's when the UFOs would be released, because he's got a short period of time, man. Jesus isn't. He's on a short leash. He has got to get stuff ready for his kid to come, to rule for his 7 years. Amanda, yes, there are rednecks here in Central Oregon. I live, doesn't look like it, but I live in a farming community. But it kind of turned into a posh, I guess you could say, recreational place where people want to mountain bike and climb and do all kinds of things in nature. And then beer companies started popping up. And then it turned into everyone looked like lumberjacks. And then when they started turning into lumberjacks, they all started to push their political opinions on everybody. And then that's when little town of Bend became a nightmare. I love rednecks. Thank God for rednecks. If there were no rednecks, we would be invaded a long time ago. So there is no spiritual apathy nationwide. There's no spiritual empathy. And there's no accountability when it comes to us doing something bad anymore. You see, the more we do not punish people for doing something wrong, the more people are just going to do whatever they want. And that turns into anarchy. Not the anarchy that I like, but in all honesty, I'll take anarchy over the 40,000 laws that get passed every year. Because laws don't push people to be good. And I got to say, early Christianity, the Bible Belt Christianity, the turn or burn Christianity, the hellfire, if you don't choose Jesus Christianity, it scared a lot of people straight. And I think that's a good thing. Because people had something to not look forward to. But then I believe Christianity got infiltrated by the devil in the United States. It got mainstream to where we got on television. The moment we did that, that's when Jesus just went, oh my God. Not TV. There's no relationship with the tube. And then the 501c3, where you had to, if you wanted to be tax-free with the church, you had to show them how much you make every year. Well, that's not a good idea. That was a deal with the devil. I believe it. But things are going so fast. Sin is coming into our lives so quick that don't be surprised if you are going to attend a wedding of a person who's marrying an animal, like a horse. And you are going to have to sit there and try to understand what's going on. The society is going in that direction to where we are taking what used to be called. I want you to understand this. Mental illness. Remember, homosexuality back in the 60s and used to be called a mental illness. Now, things are getting so far different than what we have learned growing up that we need to understand the cause before the symptom. Why is this happening? And it could be just really simple. This is what happens when society breaks down and doesn't care anymore. And believe it or not, this has happened before. I believe all of this happened during the Renaissance, right before the Byzantine Empire. There are counter arguments to Satan being released, and this is his short period. The timing of the 1,000 years, it's possible that the 1,000-year period of peace hasn't yet occurred. The Bible doesn't really provide any specific timeline for these events. So that doesn't help us. Thanks, God. There are natural cycles throughout human history that challenges and faces us by humanity, could be attributed to natural cycles like historical patterns, human choices, rather than direct demonic influence. You know, are we really naturally progressing into a society where we're going beyond what we thought was typical or normal in the past? And are we just trying to push the envelope for the shock factor? I don't know. And the role of free will plays a really good part here. Humans have free will and are responsible for our own actions. While Satan may tempt and influence people, he can't force us to sin. Right? Can he force you? No. You have free will. God can't force you to choose his son, Jesus Christ, so you can have blessings and protection on earth. That's up to you. There are common conspiracy theories related to the idea of a satanic short season. One is the New World Order. How it seems to want to raise its ugly head every 100 years. In fact, During World War I, the term New World Order was in every newspaper. Believe it or not. They were talking about a New World Order back then. In fact, the United Nations wasn't called the United Nations then. It was called the League of Nations instead of United Nations. League of Nations. And the League of Nations was caught trying to form a new world order. Some conspiracy theorists believe that a secret global elite, often referred to as the New World Order, is working to reestablish a one-world government. They argue that this is part of Satan's plan to control humanity. I don't argue that point anymore. I say he already has it. We're not seeing our rights given back to us. We're not seeing our taxes going down. Although Trump made it appear like it was, it didn't. It went back up. Yeah, she Lexi almost said League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That's not what I'm talking about, but yeah. One of the most pervasive theories that's related to the satanic short season is the nation of this new world order. And this theory suggests that the secret global elite breaks Orsini's, often associated with powerful institutions like the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, is working to establish a one-world government. Well, it's not a theory. They are. You can hear it and see it in their arguments when they talk at their little shows they hold every year. Proponents of this theory argue that this global elite is controlled by satanic forces and is implementing a plan to undermine national sovereignty, to erode individual freedoms, and establish a totalitarian regime. Well, isn't that what's happening already, guys? We're already under control. They gave us a spy device to carry with us at all times, and we use it. They go, here's a spy device. Don't worry, we're going to listen and see everything you do and record it. And you are going to also be addicted by spending 6 to 8 hours a day on your spy device. Yeah. That's called your cell phone. The Illuminati, a secret society that allegedly existed in the 18th century, it existed, is often cited as a powerful force behind global events. Some conspiracy theorists believe that the Illuminati is still active and is working to promote Satan's agenda. Well, it is. I don't have to even think about that one. It is happening. They argue that the Illuminati is controlled by satanic forces and is working to promote a globalist agenda, undermining religious institutions and establish a new world order for complete domination. Evidence often cited includes the presence of symbols or Illuminati symbols in popular culture, like during the football games, during the Olympics. Yeah, it's always black and red and blood. It's, I see it. That's what I think it is. If people don't see that, then, hey, maybe they just love watching, horror flicks and murder mysteries, and they're just learning new ways of how to kill their husband or wife and not get caught, which is one thing that everyone is into. It used to be just murder, she wrote, and now it's, I killed my wife in 3 days and got away with it. Ooh, turn that on. Another proponent in all this is the alien invasion. Some theories suggest that aliens are working with Satan to manipulate humanity and prepare for a global takeover. They often cite crop circles, UFO sightings, and government secrecy as evidence of this conspiracy. Well, that's a little different. I think the aliens are created by us. And yes, they are working with Satan because our military is working with Satan. So the alien invasion theory suggests that extraterrestrial beings are working with satanic forces to manipulate humanity and prepare for a global takeover. Proponents of this theory often cite UFO sightings. Things like Dulce, New Mexico, underground military bases, alien-human hybrids. The same thing happened, I believe, before the days of Noah. These sons of God saw the daughters of men, came down, acted like UFOs, took over mankind just like they're doing right now. That's what it seems. And then they use man because they can't manifest spiritually to physically. They have to use man to create what appears to be a fake UFO. So it's all spiritual. And they argue that aliens are using advanced technology to control human minds, manipulating governments, and sow discord among nations, which is kind of happening right now. Some believe that aliens are preparing the way for the Antichrist's arrival. I would agree, while others suggest that they are simply pawns in Satan's plan. Well, same. Another thing about Satan's short period is the technological control. Conspiracy theorists like me sometimes argue that advanced technology such as artificial intelligence and surveillance systems like satellites, drones, is being used by satanic forces to control and manipulate people. Yeah. And if the simplest explanation tends to be the correct one, then there is no God, and this is all just man building a whole narrative of religion and aliens to continue keeping us stupid and talking about shit like this. If we're going to be honest with each other, because it takes faith to believe in aliens. It takes faith to believe in Jesus. It takes faith to believe that our government hates our guts. It takes faith to believe that they actually do. Human experiments on us. The technological control theory posits that advanced technology, such as artificial intelligence, surveillance, and social media platforms, it's all being used by satanic forces to control and manipulate humanity. Well, you have to have faith in that. I do. Proponents of this theory argue that these technologies are being used to gather information about individuals, shape public opinion, and promote a globalist agenda. Well, everyone's kind of getting ready to just say, fuck it. They're all getting ready. And they're just saying, just give us a leader and I'm done. And the whole right, the Christian right, are saying, fuck it, give us Trump. Yeah, I know Russians pissed on him. I get it. Yeah, I know he's had hookers. And oh, yeah, I know he used to peek into Miss America's pageants and just walk right in while the women are changing. Yeah, I know. He's had sex with, porn stars, etc. He did. But I don't care. I'm tired of this. We're not acting like Christians. Because we're in a moral decline. And I believe this is due to help from evil, spiritual beings that are hell-bent on creating a kingdom called hell to compete against good and evil. The biggest argument that Satan is going to have with God is to basically say that you need me. People love me more or love you more when I hurt them. The decline of traditional values and the rise of moral relativism are often attributed to satanic influence. Some conspiracy theorists, like me, believe that this is part of a deliberate plan to weaken society and prepare for the Antichrist's arrival. I believe it. They often cite the increasing acceptance of homosexuality, abortion, and other controversial issues as evidence of this moral decline. Some believe that this decline is a deliberate attempt to create a society that is more susceptible to satanic influence. Well, I've been to churches and they are just angry at homosexuality and abortion. And they're like, God says no. Meanwhile, the pastor clogs up his arteries with a triple-decker cheeseburger by defiling the temple. This is why Jesus calls us all hypocrites. All of us. That's why I like what Jesus said. This one commandment I give above all. Love God with everything you got and love your neighbor the same. Can you do that? And we can't even do that. Because we're a fallen race. We're fallen, not fallen race, but we're not fallen beings, but we're a bunch of sinners. We lived right after what apparently Adam and Eve did. I often wonder if someone in heaven just walked up, hey, you, Adam? Yep. That's for the fall, you asshole. Forgive me, Lord. Because let me tell you, that guy is an asshole. He threw his wife under the bus when God said, who told you to eat of this? And he said, well, it's that woman you gave me. It wasn't me. She said to eat it. He's like, I was doing great all alone till you brought that thing in. What an asshole. John Paul says, is eating your neighbor also loving your neighbor? Well, if they ask you to eat them, and you're doing it because they've got cancer or something and they're going to die anyway and they want to go out that way, sure. But if you're committing adultery with your neighbor and that's your form of eating your neighbor, then you are not doing a good thing there, pal. Because you could get in trouble. And you could upset the family. There's consequences for everything we do. And there's consequences for when Jesus released Satan, and apparently it seems like we are kind of living in the short period. It feels like everything is speeding up, does it not? Do you guys feel like time's speeding up? Crazy shit's going on faster than I could have ever imagined. Like, there are people that have phantom diseases where they feel like they need to be in a wheelchair and they have surgery to put them in a wheelchair. I would have never thought about any of this stuff, but people are doing it. People have this phantom thing to where they feel like they're missing an arm, so they have their arm chopped off, and the hospitals won't chop off their arm, and they do it themselves. And some actually die during the process because they have this, what would appear to be, well, can you call it a disease? Can you call it mental illness? We just don't know. But craziness to me, because it's getting crazy. I'm not going to call people crazy. I'm just going to say the world is getting crazy, and it's speeding up. In the last 200 years, we went from pulling wagons to Mach 10 in a jet. We went from candles to LED lights. From an on and off switch to quantum computing, where the smallest computer chip is even smaller than a grain of sand. A whole computer chip that can process billions of pieces of data in under seconds. We went from death at 40, 100 years ago, to death now at around in the 80s, 90s. We went from dirt to a concrete world, from tents to skyscrapers. Technological advancements over the past 200 years have been nothing short of revolutionary. You have to admit it. It is revolutionary. It is amazing. Has it made our lives better? That's debatable, but it's amazing. I want to talk about some key areas where progress has been the most significant. Let's talk about communication. Is Satan speeding up communication? Well, 200 years ago, communication relied on letters, messengers, sailing ships. When I say messengers, I'm saying couriers on horseback. News could take weeks or even months to travel across continents. One of the Rothschilds took advantage of that and lied about Napoleon losing the war and said he won in order to get the Bank of England to crash, so he bought up all their shares and became the controller of the Bank of England. The last 50 years, the invention of the telephone, radio, television, and the internet has transformed communication beyond measure. Today, people can instantly connect with others around the world through various digital channels. I can go gold mining, slap up Elon Musk's little satellite, and in 5 minutes, I've got internet, and I can live in the boonies and literally work and control 5 companies, even maybe more. And transportation, 200 years ago, travel was primarily by horse, foot, or sailing ships. Journeys over long distances were slow and arduous. Now, we bitch about our tiny little seats in an airplane, but we can get from one side of the globe to the other in a day. Oh, my back is killing me. Well, try being on a ship for 3 months. The development of automobiles, airplanes, and high-speed trains has revolutionized transportation. Today, people can travel across continents in a matter of days. And computing? Let's get into computing after this commercial break.
When the Roaring 20s, while everyone was talking about prohibition, Standard Oil quietly changed to modern medicine from plants to synthetics made from crude oil. It sounded harmless because it was just a byproduct of oil, but pharmaceuticals just blew up because oil was cheap and everywhere. Unfortunately, the Depression and the Spanish flu outbreak diverted attention from studying crude oil, synthetics, and the human body basically to determine if it was safe for consumption. Big Oil was able to suppress such research and build an empire where 95% of all medicine we take now is derived from crude oil. Now, studies have shown that crude oil is not only in medicine, but in our shampoo, deodorants, dishwashing detergents, and water bottles, creating what would appear to be modern diseases that cross the stomach-brain barrier. Diseases that never existed before, like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, and autism, where scientists have actually found links to synthetic oil, not including geoengineering, where organizations are actually using heavy metals to control the weather that is in our soil and food. I wanted to find a way to reverse those effects of industrialism and turn back time to where oil wasn't a part of our bodies anymore. My team created Elite Potion, a supplemental product that binds to heavy metals and kills parasites that our bodies used to break down and dispose of. Whimsy Worm Wash works to kill microscopic parasites that escape into our bloodstream. Our nickel Nixer elixir formula binds to nano-heavy metal particulates and the parasite debris, flushing them out of the body like it used to. Unfortunately, with the fourth industrial revolution coming, humans have to adapt to silicon, oil, and heavy metals in order to merge with machines. And I wanted a product for myself to stop the effects of this, so basically I can live longer and feel better. I've been using it for months now, and I feel like I'm in my 20s again.
Imagine all the people John Balls had me cracking up. Imagine all the people. All right. Getting back to Satan short season. Computing. 200 years ago, computers were large, mechanical devices that could perform simple calculations. That was like 50 years ago. And look at computers now. A quantum computer can access another dimension and pull data from that dimension quicker than it can calculate in our dimension. What the F is going on? In the last 50 years, the invention of the transistor and the development of microprocessors have led to the creation of powerful and affordable computers. Today, computers are ubiquitous and are used in almost every aspect of modern life. In fact, computers are so popular that they don't have enough computer chips coming off of the assembly line. They are in such high demand. High demand. In medicine, 200 years ago, medical treatments were often based on superstition and folk remedies, right? Even sugar pills. Many diseases were incurable. And now, over the last 50 years, advancements in medical research, technology, and pharmaceuticals have led to significant improvements in healthcare. Today, people have access to a wide range of treatments for diseases that were once fatal. Dude, I should have died many times. If it wasn't for hospitals, most Christians would be dead. We're such hypocrites. It's funny. But seriously, man, I remember when my gallbladder bust. I could have died from that if I didn't go to the hospital and then remove it. I remember when I almost killed my liver and pancreas from drinking too much. Modern medicine, even though it's made from crude oil, is still pretty freaking amazing. But you should probably take my product, ElitePotion.com. Go to ElitePotion.com. Look, guys, don't sign up with it just because you feel bad. Sign up because you will help the girls at theflameusa.com. Because this is their product that helps them keep the newspaper going, okay? You got to support them. The Flame USA newspaper is a newspaper that talks about issues just like I talk about. Everything that I say on here, they say on there. I am a writer for them, and I made this product not only to help heal me, heal my son. I've also made this product for them to keep that newspaper going, okay? So you're supporting them, and they need your help because the newspaper is having a hard time right now. So please, go to ElitePotion.com. Try my product. I swear to God, you'll feel so much better. Just like I do. I can go and mine for months, and I'll be fine. I'll be happy. I've got enough energy. I can do it. Now, most energy 200 years ago was derived from human power, animal power, and burning wood. Shut up, John Balls. Burning coal. Last 50 years, the development of fossil fuels, nuclear power, and renewable energy sources has transformed the way we produce and consume energy. Today, we have access to a variety of energy sources that are more efficient and less polluting than traditional methods. In fact, there are free energy methods that are out there. The patents are there. They're just finally coming out and being used. When I say free energy, I'm talking about stuff like cold fusion. We mastered that after World War II. We do. We did. Lex is like, beat balls to it. So, extraterrestrial assistance in human advancement. Here's a hypothesis. And when we talk about extraterrestrials, let's just talk about demonic influence and human-animal hybrids that we created. I just don't believe in E.T. from the planet Zoltar. I don't believe we can get off or out of this bubble that we live in. Now, Occam's razor suggests that the simplest explanation is often the most likely. Given the rapid pace of human technological advancement, especially in recent centuries, one possible explanation is that we have received assistance from extraterrestrial civilization or Satan. I would believe the latter. The scenario goes, ancient contact, extraterrestrial beings visited Earth thousands of years ago, apparently, possibly during ancient civilizations like the Sumerians or Egyptians. They shared advanced knowledge and technology with humans, influencing our development. Could it be? Well, this is something that Satan really wants people to think. That it's alien and it's not spiritual, demonic. The hidden influence of it all, this extraterrestrial influence, has been hidden or disguised throughout human history, integrated into our cultural and religious narratives. It sure has. Catalyst for modern advancement. The knowledge and technology provided by these extraterrestrials or demons served as a catalyst for the Industrial Revolution and subsequent technological advancements, accelerating our development beyond what would be expected from purely human ingenuity or just time. And ongoing monitoring, the extraterrestrial civilization may continue to monitor our progress and intervene periodically to ensure we stay on a predetermined path, possibly to prevent us from self-destruction or to harvest resources. Supporting the argument, well, unexplained phenomena, anonymous historical evidence, unexplained artifacts, and ancient texts could be interpreted as evidence of extraterrestrial contact. Like, have you seen, the spaceships that were made of gold that were found in the Aztecs? UFOs and airplanes with pilots with spacesuits on? And our rapid technological progress, is it human-driven evolution, or is it from demonic influence, or is it from extraterrestrial aliens? I just don't know. I have to look at this as a biblical point of view, that maybe Satan is just in a rush to get back to where he was before the days of Noah. And the hidden knowledge, the existence of hidden or suppressed technology could suggest that certain advancements have been deliberately withheld or controlled or been a part of our past. The counter arguments to that, many of the phenomena attributed to extraterrestrial influence can also be explained through natural processes, human ingenuity, and historical accidents. Maybe. But advancement this fast, that quick, I don't buy it. I just don't. The lack of direct evidence, there is no concrete, undeniable evidence of extraterrestrial contact, period. Claims of UFO sightings, alien abductions, and ancient artifacts can be disputed or misinterpreted. So, using Occam's razor, it suggests the simplest explanation, there is no guarantee of the correctness of all of this information. And maybe the simpler explanation might not always be the most accurate one. So are we living in the end of days, Satan's last season, where this is where Gog and Magog, China and Russia are going to attack Israel, and they are going to lose. Israel's going to win. And then this is when the rise of the Antichrist is going to come in and show world peace. Yes, I'm saying it, guys. Most of the churches say that we haven't reached that point yet. Because there has to be 1,000 years of peace before the tribulation. That's what the Bible says. At least that's my interpretation. Is it true? Is it not? I don't know. It's hard to understand. It's hard to get this information. And when you go to a theologian and you ask them, or you go to Gemini AI and you say, tell me what your interpretation is of this, both are going to give a different answer. So I found this great website of this pastor who gave his interpretation of, are we living in Satan's last season? And it's as follows. The doctrine of last things, Satan's little season, Revelations 20:7-8 says, "And when the 1,000 years are finished, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall come forth to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to the war, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea." Well, we're at 8 billion people. 8 billion sands in the sea is a lot more than 8 billion people, I'm just saying. According to Revelation 20:30, the loosing will be for a little time. In the historical scheme of things, it comes after the present age and just prior to the earth-shaking appearance of Jesus Christ at the consummation of history. It is the climax of the millennium, which apparently people are now believing. Precisely how long this season of Satan will be during which he can once again deceive the nations is not stated in Scripture, other than the reference in Revelation 23, which just says, "And except those days had been shortened, no flesh would have been saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened." Matthew 24:22. The basic biblical material which explains the period is found in Revelations 20:7-10 and Matthew 24:14-28. The events which will take place during this time are the great apostasy, the great tribulation, and the reign of the Antichrist, which it kind of looks like they're setting that up right now with the third temple. Don't you think? Don't you think? Don't you think? Just don't ask me where that came from. The great apostasy. Some brethren who hold to the post-millennial view of Christ's return, and even some amillenarians, I've never heard of that, amillenarians believe that this apostasy, the falling away of Christianity, has already taken place. Well, it kind of seems like it. Therefore, before we see what Scripture says about this apostasy, we must show that Scripture does teach that it will take place in the future. Well, are we living in that future? Of course, there has been apostasy or rebellion against God and His truth all along. I would agree. This, according to Jesus, would characterize this present age. He said in Matthew 24:10-13, "And many false prophets shall arise, like Trump, and shall lead many astray, like Trump." There is constant warning of this danger in the New Testament. Through Hebrews, 2 Peter, 1 John, 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy. Already before the days of the Son of Man on earth, apostasy and rebellion were well known. There had been one under Antiochus Epiphanes in 175 before Christ, or BC. This is discussed in the Apocrypha in 1 Maccabees 1 and 2, which I've read. And believe me, the Apocrypha does explain a lot of things, but I do understand why they took it out of the Bible. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, "Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are around about us, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow." Then certain of the people made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathen and were sold to do mischief. However, if we say that this apostasy will already be past when Satan is loosed for the second time, I guess, we are not paying attention to the rest of Scripture. Writing about the day of the Lord in 2 Thessalonians, Paul adds, "Let no man beguile you in any wise, for it will not be except the falling away come first, and the man of sin be revealed." Now, notice that a definitive event which shall precede Christ's return is the, not a, falling away. The falling away. Of course, this is related to the events of this present time, because in verse 7 we read, "For the mystery of lawlessness doth already work." The apostasy that then shall be will be on intensification of what we are warned about right now. I would agree. I would. What can be said about the great apostasy? It will be a mass departure from the truth of God. William Hendrickson's writing on this in 2 Thessalonians 2:3 puts it this way: by and large, the visible church will forsake the true faith. Well, could that be like the gospel of grace? Could that be the gospel of Paul? There are a lot of people who have done a lot of research, and they really think that Paul is the apostate, saying that the whole grace thing is wrong, and Paul could have made up being approached on the road to Damascus while he was ready to kill Peter, and he met with Jesus, and he was blinded. And the great apostasy would be going away from the truth of what Jesus was teaching, because Paul convinced even the disciples, even when the disciples were still leaning heavily on legalism. Which, if Paul was wrong, and the whole faith movement after Paul, holy crap, that would be scary as hell, because that would mean that indeed we do worship an angry God, the God of the Old Testament, and Jesus came, and yeah, he was nice, but in the end, Jesus said, if you look at a woman in lust, you've already committed adultery in your heart. It's over. Holy crap. And his disciples said, well, is anyone going to get to heaven? Because they're all looking at each other like, dude, I check out chicks all the time. And then Jesus is like, well, with God, all things are possible. I mean, when Jesus came, he was a lot harder on us than Paul was. So I'm just saying, were we tricked by Paul? I don't know. I want to know the truth. But I'm telling you, I don't live on Jesus's planet right now. I live on Satan's planet, or whatever you want to call this bubbles, yellow submarine we live in. Obviously, those who defect from the true faith will not include true believers. Scripture is very clear that the elect cannot fall from God's grace. 1 Peter, John, Romans, etc. Those who do defect in that day will be those who have only done lip service to the truth. Since this is an apostasy, a falling away, these must have been at least outwardly somehow connected with the church. Those who fall away will be grossly materialistic and apparently secure in themselves. Jesus described these in Luke 17:26 through 33 as being just like the people who lived in the days of Noah and Lot, which seems like we're all living in America just as in those days, except there are no Nephilim. However, the point of comparison is not what Jesus said these people are doing. Certainly, marriage is not evil in itself, nor is eating or drinking. In fact, we are told to eat and drink and to do everything else, to the glory of God. To the point of comparison, rather, is in the fact that we were so wrapped up in what they were doing that God was not important to them. So it will be in the great apostasy. Well, look at yourself. Every day, do you give God the glory for what you have and what you do? Are you happy with him, or are you guys still continuously, being upset about your situation? When regardless if you have $1 million or not, you still have food in your belly, clothes on your back, and a roof over your head. Do you still give God that glory? Do you pray to him every day? Do you talk to him every day? See, I do. I don't feel like I'm that apostate. But are we living during it? During this period, the Great Tribulation, at the close of this age, it will be increasingly difficult to become a Christian or be Christian. Is it difficult right now to be a Christian? It's getting there. it's being hated. It's getting there. It's so close. Being a Christian right now, you are whispering in restaurants so nobody can hear you, so you don't offend them. It's getting there. The term tribulation comes from the Latin word tribulum. A tribulum was a threshing sledge. That is a wooden platform with iron teeth underneath. Ooh. It was a farming instrument for separating grain from chaff. Perhaps this helps understand what the tribulation will be like. Not fun! Usually we think of tribulation as being persecution. Indeed, it will be that for the church. However, what is usually not emphasized is that it will be a sifting process by which those who are only nominal members of the church will be exposed for what and who they are. You know, Pat Robertson. Who else? What other pastors that literally were supposed to be good, but they were liars? Who's the pastor who has 3 jets now? He doesn't, and he bought 1 jet from Tyler Perry. His name is escaping me right now, but he bought a jet from Tyler Perry because he gave me such a good deal I couldn't turn it down. You know, he had those evil eyes. Oh my God. I see him everywhere. No, not Joel Osteen. I don't think Joel's as bad as this guy. This guy was trying to get the Catholic Church to join the Protestants. He even had the Pope Francis on his show trying to speak in tongues with him and get them to merge together, which Jesus is like, dude, no. Kenneth Copeland. That's his name. Yeah, Kenneth Copeland. Yeah. Oh, I could see the devil in him. Oh, yeah. They're like, careful. You don't want to judge other pastors. Well, yeah. Well, I'm calling him out. He sure screwed up when that lady sidetracked him on his way from some event, getting off of his jet and getting into his Cadillac. Yeah, you know, he was caught red-handed being a rich schnob. So sifting, it's kind of like gold panning. You've got these different layers of gold-catching layers that have these this grits or grates, okay, that get smaller and smaller and smaller as they get down. And then it's easier to get gold and clean it when you have the gold all of the gold the same size as the rocks, because gold is heavier than the rock. So if they're the same size, it's really easy to get those out from that. Anyway, could the sifting, mixing, it's God's just trying to sift the gold out, separating the grain from the chaff, instead of it being fire and brimstone? Well, what's not emphasized is that it will be a sifting process by which those who are only nominal members of the church will be exposed for what they are. They will fall away or apostatize due to the pressures exerted on them because of their connections with the church. I think I see Kenneth Copeland, his money kept going down ever since that interview. Some, it is true, see the tribulation as an event already past. Some believe that it's already happened. Not only do postmillennialists take this position, even some millennialists see what Jesus spoke about in Matthew 24:15 through 28 as past. However, a careful study of Matthew 24 exposes their error. Verse 21, 29, 30 are very clear. For then shall be great tribulation, such as hath not been from the beginning of the world until now, nor ever shall be. But immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun shall be darkened, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Well, the sun hasn't darkened yet. So, and 2, the tribulation verses, some scholars follow the preaching of the gospel to the whole world, apparently. So is it true? Of course, the persecution for the faith has been an established fact of life for the church through the centuries. The early church was bathed in blood. Wow. The Church of the Reformation witnessed death and trouble in many forms like Islam, communism, Nazism, and other movements have brought and continue to bring ungodly pressure on the church of the modern age. And we need to not be surprised because Scripture warns the church of this very thing. Jesus says to Peter, "In this world ye shall have tribulation." John says that which will come at the end will be beyond anything we can possibly imagine. Matthew puts it this way. Jesus is pretending, or predict, actually, Dr. A. Hokima, I guess. He's referencing Matthew 24. He's saying Jesus is predicting a tribulation so great that it will surpass any other or similar tribulation, which may have preceded it, like World War I, World War II. In other words, Jesus is here looking beyond the tribulation in store for the Jews at the time of the destruction of Jerusalem to a final tribulation which will occur at the end of the age, which will get the Khazarians. Can't wait for it to happen. And Jesus says that the Christians during that time will be okay. Up until the day of the 7-year tribulation, where it says, if you're alive in those times, run to the hills, for Satan is on a rampage. The Bible in the future, well, you see, while it indeed is true that in Matthew 24, Jesus was referring to a tribulation of sorts that came first in the days of Antiochus Epiphanes, and would be seen again in 70 AD when the Roman armies desecrated and destroyed the temple, and the Christians fled to Pella and the hills. His words in verse 21 indicate that these times in trouble, both past and future, as far as both his day was concerned, were only faint reflections of what would come at the end. According to Revelations 27 through 10, this period of tribulation will be characterized by Satan deceiving the nations which are in the 4 corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for war. They will encircle the camp of the saints, but ultimately they will be destroyed. Since there is much written from time to time about Gog and Magog, perhaps we should look more closely at what they are. The term Gog and Magog is another of many references to the Old Testament in the book of Revelation. Gog and Magog we find discussed prophetically in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Gog, the prince of Rosh, or Russia, Meshach, and Tubal ruled over the territory of Magog. Well, Tubal, Meshach is China. According to Genesis 10:2, Magog, Meshach, and Tubal were all tribes which descended from Japheth. Before Ezekiel's time, Meshach and Tubal were savage peoples who inhabited the mountains north of Assyria. Gradually, they migrated north toward the Black Sea. They were tribes that lived, as it were, on the outer fringes of the world's peoples, Russia, China. These troublesome people who opposed and oppressed or all who are around them are used by Ezekiel as a picture of the oppressive power of the Seleucidae. I don't know what this is. Seleucidae? I don't know. Especially as it was experienced under Antiochus Epiphanes. Thus, Ezekiel refers to Gog and Magog as the last great oppression of God's people in the Old Dispensation, which I believe it's going to be Russia and China against the New World Order, which is NATO, or Israel and America and their allies. That's what it looks like. Now, when Gog and Magog were referred in the book of Revelation, they appear to be the source of the last great oppression of the people of God in the new dispensation, which really feels like today. Therefore, Gog and Magog do not have their fulfillment in some nation and leader located geographically where Gog and Magog lived in the Old Testament days, so we don't know. Rather, since Revelations 20 tells us that they are in the four corners of the earth. Gog and Magog are the oppressors of believers throughout the entire earth. Well, China is oppressing the believers in China, the Christians in China. Russia was oppressing the Christians in Russia, not until just recently. Already their oppression is seen in humanism, the countless other isms of the day, the cults, etc. Well, the Great Tribulation will come to a head in the Antichrist. It will be short, Matthew and Revelation say, and it will culminate in what the Bible picturesquely calls the Battle of Armageddon. Edge believes that we're here. We could be. We could be. Following this commercial break.
If you're looking for a publication that delivers honest takes and critical insights into the issues of our day, then look no further than the Flame Paper. The Flame Paper is written for the people, by the people, who aren't afraid to challenge a mainstream narrative, be it healthcare, voter fraud, political correctness, or even the one world government. The Flame is full of timely articles, reports, and expert advice written by freedom-loving, truth-telling experts, journalists, and concerned citizens. To subscribe, go to theflameusa.com.
What are you guys talking about? I didn't mean to worry anyone. It was just odd as all about thumbs. What? Anyway, this is a live show. We are looking at the live chat, talking to our friends, and they're talking about thumbs, and that's all I know. The reign of the Antichrist. Here again, we must make a distinction. If we're going to really think we're in the second, Satan has already been locked up for 1,000 years. He's been released. Now he's got a short time to start the tribulation. Are we here? Are we here? The Bible speaks of antichrists as the Antichrist. All of them. So many antichrists are the Antichrist. Could be just possessed. I don't know. We are warned that in this present age there are antichrists, like 1 John says. Of these we must beware. However, in the last day, just before Christ's appearance, the Antichrist will make his appearance. Like it's almost like they're getting ready to introduce an ET to stop us from committing nuclear genocide, right? The term Antichrist can mean either against or instead of Christ, either opposed to or in place of Christ. Therefore, Herman Hoeksema explains him as being one that is opposed to Christ in order to take his place. That makes more sense to me. There are three basic places in Scripture where we find this information: Daniel, Revelation, and Thessalonians. And he shall speak words against the Most High, like Jesus is a blankety blank, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. And he shall think to change the times and the law, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and time and a half. Time and a half, and of time and time and time and a half. Half a time. It says, until a time and times and half a time. Whatever. Well, you can argue that the Catholic Church did that because they did change the times. We used to have 13 months, now we have 12. While some believe that this passage was fulfilled under Antiochus Epiphanes, E.J. Young, an author in his commentary on Daniel, shows that this is not necessarily correct. Rather, Antiochus serves as one illustration of the manner in which the Antichrist will act. This act of Antichrist will affect all men, but specifically the people of God. And this tyranny will endure for a definite period of times, and the dividing of these times. Daniel talks about it. 2 Thessalonians talks about it. And it says in Revelations, his power is vividly portrayed as we see the beast out of the sea, or people. The sea is just a bunch of people. And the beast out of the earth. So the beast out of the earth. I have no idea who the beast of the earth is. A sea of people, a sea of earth, I have no idea. An earth of people, I have no clue. The first beast, which we see, comes from the sea. That means nations. It's a combination of beasts of the book of Daniel and a wild one, a monster. Symbolizes the secular power of the state. The picture we are given is a peaceful one, since the wicked ones will follow after this power of the state and worship it. Worship it. Kind of like how people worship Trump. His power is limited as to how long he will rule. Well, Trump may only have 4 years. His way is one of blasphemy against God and all that is connected with him. His power is an anti-Christian governmental power. Well, I haven't really seen him go against God. I just see Trump just being a fumbling idiot. But you can literally take all of this information, guys, and make a case that, yeah, the Dark Ages was when Satan was locked up spiritually. And man wasn't progressing at all because Satan was locked up. And then right around the year 1500, he got let go. And that's when the Catholic Church went twing, satanic to the core. Because the Orsinis, they've been practicing sexual black magic. And they've built these human trafficking centers worldwide, underground, through sea to shining sea, in the air, in the sea, underground, everywhere, sacrificing as many people as they can for Satan to apparently gather the energy from the blood so he can manifest here on earth. I don't know. But remember the beast out of the earth? I'm like, what the hell is that? Well, this gives another dimension to his power. It also has a spiritual character. He appears like a lamb, meek and peace-loving. Is that how Trump comes across? Like a lamb, meek and peace-loving? I don't see it. Like the false prophets, he is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now, I see the current pope like that. Like a lamb, meek and peace-loving. But he's a dick. I believe he's a pedophile. His purpose is to tempt and deceive. He brings the people of the earth to worship the beast out of the sea. Basically, like what he just recently said, he said, all things lead to Jesus. Is that true? Well, Jesus says the opposite. Nobody can get to the Father except for through me. That's what he says. That's what he says. Being a true false prophet, he performs signs and wonders and deceives his followers by lying. Trump's a great liar. Only those who are loyal to him are without economic sanctions, like Hershey's or all these other big corporations that are feeding us ourselves, Soylent Green. They're not getting sanctions because, like McDonald's, they're grinding up the goyim and feeding the goyim to themselves because the children love the hamburger and the sausage in the morning. What do we care? Believers are made social outcasts, like Christians. Those who are loyal to him bear the mark of the beast, loyal to the devil, 666. This is his name, that is, it reveals his character. The number 6 is the number of the earthly, or number of man. 666 is not the number of the beast. It's the mark of the beast, not the number of it. There's a big difference between a number and a mark. Every man's going to receive a mark. Not a chip. Not God, I forgot the name of that thing. It's a mark. And I think it's going to be spiritually. And no one's going to be able to buy or sell because I believe, and this is just a theory of thought, that it's not going to be just earthly, but a spiritual thing where you won't want to buy and sell in the beast system because inside it is death. It's kind of like everything we buy right now just kills us. Nobody's going to buy, if you have the mark of God on you, M&Ms and celery, GMO, and Bill Gates's peel, product. It's basically, Jesus is separating the wheat from the chaff. The chaff go over there and they eat that shit and they don't care. But eventually we steer ourselves away from the beast system, which is, death in itself. And the mark of God is on us and the beast is on them. Yeah, it's not a barcode. Thank you, Boots. It's not going to be a machine either. We're not going to be merged with machine with the mark. No, it's nothing like that. I think it's spiritual. And I think it makes the most sense. That represents man's repeated attempt to establish his own kingdom of peace and his repeated failure, which he fails every single time. Now, what does all this tell us about the person called the Antichrist? Well, he is not Satan. 2 Thessalonians 2:9 says he is not Satan incarnate. No, he's man, but he definitely has possession. He is a real person, uses words which make this clear, opposes, exalts himself, is slain. These are words of men, not influences, kind of like Trump. He is opposed to God's law and rebellious in every way. Well, Trump's not. He's for God's law. He's for the old law and the new law. He's for the Noahide laws and he's for Christianity laws. So you can rule him out. He's not the Antichrist. Sorry. He is utterly lost. He is the son of perdition, designated into perdition. He is the final Judas. He recognizes only one God, himself. Well, that could be Trump. Anything Christian, he is against. That's not Trump. His rule has a religious and political aspect wedded into one. Not really Trump. He will bring intense pressure on believers. Not Trump. He will be defeated at Christ's coming. So the conclusion to all this. I know it's been a long show. Thank you for enduring all of my bullshit. While there is no definitive proof that we are currently in Satan's short season, there isn't. There's some idea of it, but it requires even more faith to believe we are. We could be. But it's hypothetical. And the case represented here suggests that it is a possibility. It's a possibility. And Satan could have hidden all of that information. But I don't have a confirmation from the Holy Ghost that we are. Their interpretation of biblical prophecies and the understanding of current world events are complex, as you know. Revelations doesn't follow an order. It's all over the place. Revelations is just rolling the dice, is taking a bunch of cards, throwing them up on the table and saying, all right, put it all together. Ultimately, whether or not we believe we are in this period, well, is a matter of faith, perspective, and personal interpretation. If we are, I think it's better for us because we've gotten through all of the other stages. Now we're at the end. And the Bible's pretty clear, I think, that what follows after Satan goes into the lake of fire, we live into the New Jerusalem, and we don't have to deal with Satan and his crap anymore. Now, man, we got to deal with man's crap. And what follows in the future, I believe that the saints are going to rebel just like Satan did. You see, there's nothing new under the sun. It's going to happen over and over again. Everything God creates rebels against him. It does. And it's not God's fault. And he didn't sit there and write it like, I really hope they rebel against me, and I hope I throw them in the lake of fire. No. He knew it was a possibility when he created it. He didn't want that outcome, and he tried everything he could to not have that outcome, but it happened. I believe God is completely misunderstood and that Satan has had control over this earth. He's had control over all documentation, all of it, since at least the year 1500. Academia has gone absolutely insane, where they say science is settled. 10 years later, it's not. They get proven they were screwed over, that they screwed us, and nobody takes the fall. There's a really good case to draw up saying that we could be post 1,000 year Satan was locked in the pit. Because of how fast things are going, it's crazy. And if that's the case, the Bible says rejoice. Because all of this monstrous stuff happening to human beings isn't going to last for forever. It'll happen again, but we don't have to endure it anymore. We as human beings, the first thing God molded and created with his hands and then blew his spirit into Adam. We're special to God. We're special to him. Satan doesn't like that. And again, I can only explain this from a biblical point of view. I can't find a rational earthly point of view to all of this other than you guys and me, we're all psycho. Okay? You're schizophrenic, you're schizophrenic, and you're schizophrenic. And that's it. And believe me, I'd rather be schizo than have to try to convince people of an invisible God. Be just easier for me to swallow my pill and play and eat checkers with a white suit on. It'd just be easier. I'd rather do that. Just being honest. All right, guys, this has been Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Carner. Tune in tomorrow night when God gives me another idea, something to talk about. Go to ElitePotion.com and sign up, guys. Support the women. Support the girls at TheFlameUSA.com. They need your support. Also, go to JamesCarner.com. Sign up for my newsletter. If you're not on there, I can't send you an email every day saying I'm going live. And on top of that, everyone can do me just one big favor. One favor alone. Just love your neighbor. If you love your neighbor, this entire world, I swear to God, would be a better place. See you tomorrow.